Okay, we're live now.
Hey, welcome to the paper session on meaning in clinical practice. We have 3 presentations for this session. First, we have Roslyn Francis, and she will be presenting on is there a relationship between meaning in life, valued living, social support, bereavement experience, and death competence. Second, we have Jacky, Dr. Jacky van der Goor from University of Twente on the power of sharing meaningful moments, Buberian analysis of a counseling intervention. Now, I had the opportunity to participate in yesterday's workshop, and I highly recommend it. So for those of you who want to check it out, when the conference recording becomes available a week after the conference, be sure to click on Jacky's workshop. And lastly, a presentation by Mandy and Andy on helping adolescents in search of meaning and purpose through promoting their existential well-being with narrative practice. So without further ado, I'm going to turn over to Roslyn.
Hi, everyone. I'm Roslyn Francis, and I'm presenting today from Adelaide in South Australia. It is actually 6 a.m. in the morning here on Monday. This paper is a result of a Master of Applied Positive Psychology thesis exploring the question, influencing perceived death competence, perceived death competence. Is there a relationship between meaning in life, valued living, social support, bereavement experience, and death competence? The purpose of this study was to further our understanding of how meaning in life, valued living, social support, and bereavement experience are associated with coping with death. If you'll just bear with me, I've forgotten to share my screen, and that's important. Let me just get myself organized. I'm not sure how to do that. Why is it looking different? So I'm not sure why the, Mega, if you could help me with this slide show, it's not sharing. I think I've got it. Let's get back to it. The purpose of this study was to further our understanding of how meaning in life, valued living, social support, and bereavement experience are associated with coping with death. We were also interested to see the impacts of valued living, social support, and bereavement experience on coping with death. The intention is to build the evidence base to inform, further explore, and to develop interventions to improve coping with death. This cross-sectional study analysed data collected from participants in a MOOC, Dying to Learn, created by CareSearch. Dying to Learn was delivered in 2018 over a 6-week period comprising of an introductory week, 4 weeks of learning modules, and a reflection module in the final week. The course was flexible and free. The course Dying to Learn was about raising awareness and engaging community conversations on death and dying. Of the 1,602 enrollees, 231 accepted the invitation to participate in a research study. 91% of participants were female, and the mean age was 54.5 years. The following online surveys were completed during the introductory week. Meaning in Life questionnaire, which is a 10-item self-reporting instrument inviting agreement with items on 2 subscales: presence of meaning in life, 5 items. For example, I have good sense of what makes my life meaningful. And second, search for meaning in life had 5 items. For example, I'm looking for something that makes my life feel meaningful. Valued Living questionnaire is a 20-item 2-part instrument which taps into 10 valued domains of living. 1, family. 2, marriage, couples, intimate relations. 3, parenting. 4, friendships, social relations. 5, employment. 6, education training, 7, recreation, 8, spirituality, 9, citizenship, community life, and 10, physical well-being. We use the abbreviated 6-item version of the medical outcomes study, social support. This is a multi-dimensional self-administered measure of social support. Items, for example, included, do you have someone to take you to the doctor if needed? Or do you have someone to share your most private worries and fears? A simple question was created to measure bereavement experience. Has someone close to you died in the last 5 years? We used Bugan's Coping with Death scale, which comprises 30 items looking at aspects of coping with death. For example, can I talk about my death with my family and friends? I am able to spend time with the dying if I need to. We also looked at a selection of socio-demographic information, including age, gender, university qualification, health professional, religiosity, and spirituality. The results conclusively supported our hypothesis and corroborated previous research that greater presence of meaning in life is a significant predictor of coping with death. As purposeful meaning in life is experienced, the ideas of life and death appear to take on an empowered position where death is more easily managed. The results confirmed valued living was positively related to death competence. Those living with life, their lives in line with their values, had greater death competence. A novel finding of this research was a high bivariate correlation between presence of meaning in life and valued living. So as presence of meaning in life increases, so does valued living. Search for meaning in life produced a small negative association. Social support, realised or perceived, produced a moderate to small positive bivariate association with coping with death. Age and spirituality produced a moderate to small effect, suggesting that there is an influence on coping with death. Bereavement experience, gender, religiosity, university qualification, and health occupation, past or present, did not produce a significant influence on coping with death. Bereavement experience did not moderate the association between life-related variables and death competence. Presence of meaning in life had the strongest unique relationship with death competence in the multiple regression. Previous studies have shown that bereavement experience is associated with coping with death. However, our study found that bereavement experience did not have any influence on death competence, either as a main effect or as a moderator. This may be due to our measure of bereavement experience, which considered loss in the past 5 years. Other research suggests that grief after 2 years post-loss may well be resolved and people have moved through a natural mourning process. Additionally, while it may reflect an interplay of the time distance from bereavement, it may also be influenced by social support networks and age, all of which have been identified as crucial to buffer the impact on coping with death. The findings of this study suggest that meaning in life and our ability to cope with death are indivisibly related. The key finding of clinical value is that the more we can increase meaning in life, the greater one's death competence. Alongside this, as meaning in life increases, valued living increases, which supports developing interventions to not only increase meaning in life, but also valued living where death competence is sought. My interest is the applied aspect of existential positive psychology in day-to-day settings. As Wong states, if we don't know death, how can we know life? If our existential needs remain unfulfilled, we may be disabled from the experiences which offer a sense of fullness in life and which may continue to offer an empowerment for us to weather the challenges of our last stage of life. In my PhD, I will consider further the positive interplay of these well-being, life-related variables of meaning in life, valued living, and social support for enhancing coping with death for those living and working within the residential aged care setting. Even when one is in an aged care facility, there remains an inclination to both the need to understand and a yearning to search for something of meaning and value, to continue to make worth life living in the midst of one's suffering. Australia has recently received the findings of a Royal Commission into Aged Care Quality and Safety. It has identified the need to improve well-being of older people, including those in residential aged care. This is where the older person and their younger family members are most likely to be confronted with the conflicting existential realities of suffering and the will to continue to live and age well in this end-of-life phase. As this was a cross-sectional study, we cannot make any presumption about causation or direction. The challenge now is identifying which factor is actually acting as the key determinant. Further research is required to determine the direction of the relationship between meaning in life and coping with death. We intend to follow people over time, longitudinally. I'm happy to take any questions, and I have added my email address and would be very interested to hear from anyone who would like to discuss this further. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Roslyn. Thank you for your presentation. Now, if there's any questions, please put it in the chat box. Okay, now we're going to move on to Jacky.
Okay, hi everybody. Let me just see. I think Roslyn should stop sharing her presentation, is that right?
Yes, now we're good.
Okay. So I can start, Mika?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody. I'll start sharing my own screen, my own presentation. Can you see my presentation?
Yes.
Yes, it's visible. Okay, well, thank you, everybody. My name is Jacky van der Goor, and you see a picture of a campfire in the dark. Well, in the Netherlands, it's 10:30 in the evening right now, so it's all also dark. And I'm a professional trainer and coach, and I did a PhD on meaningful moments in life. And in the last part of my PhD was about the power of sharing meaningful moments, in which I developed an intervention in which people share meaningful moments as a means to experience meaning in life. And if you look at meaningful moments, I think in this conference, we've heard people talk about peak experiences, we have epiphanies, there's all kinds of moments in life that we may experience that may help us to connect to meaning in life. So this is like a personal experience, and meaningful moments, they may happen in the wild, like you may have this epiphany happening, but also by reflecting on meaningful moments, there's a lot of reminiscence interventions or life review interventions that make use of meaningful moments in a clinical setting to help people connect the sources of meaning. But they're usually personal oriented. So it's about my life and my meaningful moments and the meaning of these moments to me. But what as of yet has not been studied is what happens when people actually share meaningful moments, share their own meaningful moment with others in a group. So in my practice and in my research, I developed an intervention in which people actually do this. And in the last part of my PhD, I studied the way meaning arises in this process of sharing. So the research question for this particular study was how a sense of meaning can be enhanced by sharing meaningful moments with others. And to do so, I used, so there was this Buberian analysis in the title. You pronounced it very well, Miga. And so I'm referring to meaning as a sense of interconnectedness. There's all different kinds of ways to look at meaning, but if we look at Martin Buber, I used his work. He's a Jewish philosopher, And he said, all real living is meeting, and we experience a sense of meaning in the process of meeting with others. So for this particular study, as I wanted to look at the relations and what happens in the process between people, I took Martin Buber's theory to investigate what happens in this intervention. And I don't know if the people know Martin Buber's works. Particularly famous is his work on I and thou, which is a sense of interconnectedness, where we really experience a relation to the other without boundaries. So that this is like a transcendent experience. And Martin Buber called this a dialogical process, and he actually introduced a couple of concepts. I'm showing 3 of them here: imagining the real, confirmation, transcendence. I'll explain them later on, to explain what happens in this process of meeting the other and in this process of in which we experience meaning. So I used Martin Buber's philosophy to look at this intervention. And now I'll tell you something about this intervention. And because it was a case study on what is called the Wonderful Life intervention. And this intervention is based on one question, which I actually derived from a Japanese movie, the movie Afterlife. And that question is, it's the question that we use to elicit meaningful moments. The question is, what if there is an afterlife? And there, all your memories from this life will be erased, except for one. Which memory would you choose to take to eternity? So this question in my previous studies has proven to help people to really focus on really essential moments in life without aiming in a specific direction. It doesn't have to be a happy moment or a blissful moment or a big life event. All kinds of moments are elicited by this question, and it stands central in the Wonderful Life intervention. And if you look at the intervention, I'll just quickly go over the stages of the intervention. First, there's a welcome by the counselor that facilitates the intervention. Usually there's like 8 to 12 people taking part. And first of all, they are asked to select one memory in answer to the Wonderful Life question. So it starts with meditation, and then they select one memory. After that, they share these memories in a group. And one by one, people tell their memory, and the others listen to the memory in silence. And that's a very important part. You just let the memory be. Others listen, and then afterwards, they give a short reflection. They give it back to the person who told his or her memory to show what resonates with them. Next, there's a phase where they reflect. Usually they do that in pairs, where they get some questions to help them get to the essence of the chosen memory. And then afterwards, they write a letter for the future, because what is so special about this question is that you choose now, at this moment, you choose from your past, you choose it to take to the future. So there's like 3 time dimensions in the Wonderful Life question. And this composing a letter for the future is directed at the future. So they are asked to let the memory speak and to say, well, what does this memory call you to do in your future? And then again, these letters are shared, and the other participants listen in silence. So this is a small overview of this intervention. And I'll tell you a little bit about the way the case study was designed. So we did a group intervention. We used that as a case study. I had 8 participants. They were all healthcare professionals who participated in the intervention. And directly after the intervention, we had 2 focus groups in which they were asked about their experience throughout the different stages of the intervention. So at each phase, we asked, what did you experience? What happened? And how did you perceive that? Next, we did a data analysis on the transcripts of these focus groups sessions. And we used the philosophy of Martin Buber's philosophy of meeting and the concepts he used to explain this process to look at what happened in this process. And I see somebody raise his hand. Yes, Andy, would you like to ask a question, Sham, Andy?
Sorry, I was responding to Meg only. Sorry.
Oh, okay, that's okay. Okay, that's fine. So this is so we did a data analysis, and I'd like to take you along with the results. First of all, a very important concept in Martin Buber's philosophy is called imagining the real, and this is where you really step into the reality of the other person. So we really make a connection to what is life is like. It's like a really empathic connection to visualize and see what life from the perspective of the other is like. And this is what participants in the intervention really say they experienced. Like if one person was telling his or her story, the others really imagined that story. And that's what they said. They said, well, it was like I was there. So, and what helped in this was, first of all, the wonderful life question itself, because the participants listening said, well, you know, if people are going to tell one memory from their whole life, that really starts a process of respectful listening. But also the vivid narration. We asked people to tell their memory like a narrative with as much detail as possible. And telling a narrative in a vivid way makes it easier to imagine the real and to step into that memory. And finally, what is also very interesting is that they note that the silence really contributes, that listening in silence really helps to see how the other experiences that story. And usually we're used to asking questions, but actually it's the silence that really gets you into the way the other person experiences that story. So this is imagining the real. Then to another concept of Martin Buber, which is confirmation. And this is the way we are seen in the process of meeting. So the way you're seen in a positive way as who you really are, in the way you're seen as an authentic person and the way you're called to become. And what happens here is that people say that also the silence contributes here, because by just letting the story that the memory that somebody tells, by just letting it be, the postponed reaction helps to also for the person who's telling his or her story, it really helps him or her to feel that, well, I'm really seen in who I am. You know, there's no interruptions. This is just who I am. And then also you can see that in the arrows that people gave feedback on, they resonate on the memory and they gave feedback on notes. And that also helps to connect. So if we look at imagining the real and confirmation, both sides of Buber's dialogical process are actually very clearly there within the process of the intervention. But then there was also a new finding. I called it swinging back. This is actually not in Martin Buber's model, but this is what also happened. And you might actually imagine that if somebody's telling a story, that as a listener, always memories pop up of the way you have a similar story. So if somebody's telling about a walk in nature, then maybe a memory of mine pops up in nature. And so this is like where imagining the real is swinging over to the perspective of the other. Swinging back is going back from the memory to your own life and finding similar examples. So actually, and that's where a connection is formed between the other and the self, because actually here we see that your story, that the other story, is also my own story. And then finally, relating to self-transcendence, what also happens is in the multiplicity of stories that are told, because as more people tell their stories, all different, they actually tell meaningful moments about all different facets of life. So we have happy moments, but we also have sad moments. We have moments in nature when we're alone. People share moments of being together and laughter, but also serious moments. So, and spiritual or religious moments. And actually what people say, one participant said it in a very nice way. He said, well, one big story emerges, one big story about what life is all about. And by sharing these stories, people actually show all different facets of what life is about. And in this way, they tell that they not only feel a connection to the other participants in the group, so there were with 8 of them, they feel a strong connection to each other, But there's also a larger sense of connection, a self-transcendent sense of connection to humanity. As one participant said, well, I see that we're all different, but in a deeper level, we're all the same. And we connect to the larger whole of life. We connect to the existential themes that are there throughout these stories and to the human values that lay beneath each of these meaningful moments. And that can also have a transforming impact. Participants also say, well, I got narrowed in my way of thinking, and this broadens my perception. Sharing these moments broadens my perception of what life is all about. So, to conclude and to summarize, sharing meaningful moments may lead to a self-transcendent sense of meaning as connectedness, which is also physically felt. So this is what Buber's philosophy is about, the philosophy of meeting. That meeting is something that is really a bodily sensation, and that is what the participants also said. And what contributes to this is, in this dialogical process, that is the wonderful life question itself, because people see that this question elicits really valuable moments. So they enter their mode of being is a respectful and open and authentic way. The vivid narration, so sharing memories, you can say, well, I choose the birth of my daughter, but that's like a summary. So the vivid narration of what is actually going on aids this process. The silence and the listening in silence aids it. And also the postponed reaction. So there's no asking questions, there's no intervening, letting these moments just be and resonating on them as like you create like a poetical space that contributes to a sense of meaning in life. So this is my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention. All questions are welcome. Here are some links. The first is to my PhD thesis, which includes all my studies on meaningful moments and on the moments also that are elicited by means of the wonderful life question, and also this study, this Buberian analysis included. So thank you for your interest, and hope to speak to you.
All right. Thank you very much, Jacky. Thank you for that presentation. And if you were to share a link, I'll be sure to put that on Feedloop so that it's also in the recording.
Okay, that's good.
Excellent. So now we're going to move on to Andy and Mandy from Hong Kong University. So please proceed with your presentation.
Hi, everyone. This is Mandy Chan. In this presentation, I will be presenting with Andy, Sham, and we will be presenting a topic on helping adolescents in search of meaning and purpose through promoting their existential well-being with narrative practice. So here is the outline of the presentation. Oh, by the way, I'm a PhD candidate at the University of Hong Kong, and I'm also an educational psychologist in Hong Kong. And then Andy is a private practitioner, and he's a supervisor for counseling in narrative therapy. So then I think I will pass the time to Andy to provide the presentation first, and then I will present at the end. Okay.
So we've got the outline here. We try to, I've been working with Mandy for 20 years in the practice of narrative therapy, and this is a case sharing. And the outline for this presentation is the integration of core elements of existential and positive psychology in the narrative approach in counseling to foster a sense of meaning and purpose. I'll give practical example of the therapy process in helping individuals to gain the personal agency to make choices in life themes for pursuit of well-being. It also implies the roles of therapists and the person seeking the therapy. Next, please. So we use a narrative approach. It is informed with postmodernism. Narrative therapy will critique the context of telling a story plots in the client A. Does not own the problem. The client does not own the problem. The process that we visit the scenario. We use 4 dimensions to critique on power, reality, language, and culture. Where a client will be aware of the known and familiar and the counselor also. We try to unpack the negative identity to identify the possible to know. A process to diligently and intelligently explore the predicament in a co-construct journey with the client. It is frequently filtrated with remembering and offering conversation, though it is not demonstrated in this presentation. Next slide, please. So we come to a case that a young college girl approached a school counselor to tell that she desired for abortion. It was with a boy of another different college. And the girl, she did not wish college or parent to know. Cases report to the head of the team in the counseling team. And the following dialogues between the girl and the head. The case was allowed the counselor to follow after this conversation. Please bear with me the verbatim, which is truncated. Okay, grateful you understand the policy of the college and trust us to your critical situation. Girl said, I decide not the college authority and the parents know about it. We're not certain we might have to take this step, yet it must be the last step for our meeting, and that your consent to it is truly important before we take this step. So we try to calm her, and could we know how we want the issue to settle? I will go for abortion. My boyfriend was far away. We probably say alternate weekends, but we must not let the parents know. Would you tell us how you define your relationship with a boyfriend and how you arrive on abortion? I'm now certain that he could not handle it. I know the implication of abortion, ready and determined to continue with my study. Has this abortion thing caused a lot of trouble and affect badly your daily life? And have you seriously dislikes or even harmful violent behaviors lately? Is anyone you have informed? It occurred very briefly in the beginning, about 2 weeks ago. And very soon I got on my feet and mentioned it to my cousin sister. She would not tell my mother. It sounds you know quite well with your situation, and I arrived at some decision. Allowed me to explore a few more points. Is it fine with you? As long as the college and my parents do not know about it. How would you describe your relationship with parents? You usually contact your mother or father. My parents are good enough. I call mother, usually my family is fine. So we come to the next part, which is after some gap between the conversation. Would we explore how you deliver the issue to your cousin sister? She gave a lot of information, even tell me the addresses and details in abortion. I was not in very good terms with her, but she was resourceful and useful. How in the end you make the move to tell your cousin? What happened in you before you make a choice to call her? Yes, it was not easy. I know, in fact, she cared about young ones like us, and I've been now must be getting on well. Though I must still reserve whatever it is to tell her. In terms of what you treasure and how you wish to keep your theme like you want to keep when this issue is fixed, is it more that in you that you can tell your mother when you can find how much of this is there the great difference in the words that you tell your cousin or do you tell your mother? Well, then it's more in you in action and feeling you anticipate and see that you are able to make one step further. It is not better now. Although it is a rather long and difficult time, good I can manage and realize I will pursue alternatives to resolve the issues. Can we say if you were your cousin sister, how would you feel if you tell me what you tell me now? Oh yes, being to help must be good. Maybe I can tell her of this, yet I'm not used to it. So we finish looking at the verbatim. I argue that the well-being and positive psychology are prepared before we have the conversation and prepared in the counselor's mind. The conversation adopted this sort of wisdom, knowledge, temperance, transcendence, and humanity, courage in the verbatim. Next slide, please. The narrative approach is being endorsed in the conversation. I'm not finishing. No blame, no guilt, unpack negative connotation to seek resources with personal agency. Towards possible to know the construction by critiquing use of words, critique power, critique reality and culture. A quest is transient with love to affirm the bravery and authenticity of the girl, remembering of the mother function and reoffer of the girl on its own desire, value and belief are in place. What in fact remains definitely is a critique on the counselor itself. in the entire conversation. The question of co-journey and questioning in consent and knowledge to observe the personal agency of the girl, to make a choice with the authentic self, from general, no stigma, and to particularity, the intention rather than internal or weaknesses. Okay. So narrative approach is used. And also we bear the existential therapy into this narrative therapy on the 6th dimension, the capacity for self-awareness. Second, the freedom and vulnerability. Third, the striving for identity and relationships to others. Fourth, the search of meaning, for meaninglessness in existential therapy. And the fifth, we take care of the anxiety as a condition of living. In the verbatim itself, you can see the girl is in isolation also. The awareness of death and non-being, in that abortion and the separateness. Okay, the next slide, please. Okay, we have a discussion pack. We have the common policies in existential therapy is that strategic derivatives under the rigid framework, in addition to the ideation and existential therapy, makes it difficult for practical application and evaluation. Also, the pragmatic being with the client in relation counseling is vague, let alone the call to succinctly tack for professional work. We argue that narrative therapy complements existential therapy with its postmodern approach, and the philosophical underpinning together with even question the deliver of the minimum structure of skill set, giving back the process of the story to the client for the choice of preferred self, irrespective of dominant culture and immediate blame, to witness her at last he informed the mother to get that experience the life ahead. So this is the discussion pack. We can challenge on this one and try to check the verbatim. Next slide, please. And this is also the philosophical part we added, and I think I've finished the presentation and invite Mandy to it, but we have leave the email so you can contact us for more discussion. Okay, so invite Mandy, please.
So thanks for Andy's presentation. In the next part of the presentation, I will focus on a case analysis of a girl who is a Chinese student studying in Hong Kong. And the case was referred by her mother, okay? And before I share the student case, I would like to share about some of the steps that I have used to help the girl, okay? And I'm so sorry for the disruption because of some technical problem that we are encountering. And so I hope that things would be much better, would be smoother here, I mean, in the other part of the presentation. I'm sorry about the disruption. And I myself, as I've mentioned, I'm working as an educational psychologist in Hong Kong, and I learned about narrative therapy, and I think that this could blend beautifully with the concepts in existential well-being. And in this case, I try to provide a context for the girl to explore her existential well-being and in different aspects of life. And then in the counseling process, I use the externalizing conversations. I help the girl to redefine the problems that she is encountering, and then she could negotiate with and explore different forms of relating to the problems that she's encountering. And I help her to evaluate the impacts of the problems and to develop alternative storylines other than the original problem-saturated storylines. And in narrative therapy, with the concepts in existential counseling and existential well-being, and attempts were made to guide the person to view the life circumstances with different perspectives and ways of thinking. Through therapeutic inquiries with narrative practice, it provides some space for the individual to explore the territory of lived experience that were absent from immediate memory. So the person seeking therapy could make sense of what one values in the present, to draw resources from the past and to be free from making a decision in life that is in line with one's values, hopes, and aspirations. So according to the research, there are links between existential well-being with the mental health in university students. And then the existential well-being are also found to be positively related to the sense of purpose. More specifically, people with a higher level of emotional clarity would have higher level of meaning, and existential threats may undermine the sense of meaning among the individuals. So, and another research showed that at-risk adolescents with a higher level of spiritual and existential well-being would be likely to report a lower level of anxiety. So therefore, guiding adolescents to discover meaning and purpose in life through counseling or coaching would help them to foster a sense of existential well-being. And it may also protect them from developing anxiety. So, another research showed that spiritual sense could be explored in the context of interpersonal relations and universe as a whole. So existential well-being seems to be a very complicated and abstract concept, but when we, in the context of interpersonal relationships, so the students could explore and then try to make sense of who they are, and then to have a better sense of existential well-being. So I think because of the concern of the time, maybe I go quickly in 1 minute about the case. So if for the girl that I help, I provide 4 sessions of counseling for her. So firstly, I try to explore and externalize her problems. And the problems that she named would be like having no motivation in learning. And then the impact on her would be having low score in exam and then would not get admitted to the university. And then in session 2, I try to explore the preferred storyline in her and to identify her strengths and her aspirations. So I use themes on, video on character strengths, and I help her to list the strength of her. And then, and to try to externalize or maybe help her to articulate the dreams and aspirations that she's having. And she mentioned about having a wish to be admitted to the university, but she didn't like a life that is working too hard. And then I try to explore her strength and make use of her strength to deal with the problems that she's encountering. And then in the 3rd session, I invite her mother to join the counseling session and to thicken the storyline and then help her to recall some of the memories where she is a girl, where she was a girl that is working hard and having interest and curious to learn. And then lastly, I help her to redefine the problems and then trying to find ways to deal with her problems in learning. So this is the end of my presentation, and thank you very much for your attention. Okay.
Thank you very much, Mandy and Andy, for your wonderful presentation. Now, Roslyn, Mandy, and Andy, if you would like attendees to get in touch with you, please share your email or your work, or if there's a website, and put it on feedloop so that it will also be accessible during the recording. So just looking at it, doesn't seem like we have any questions at the time, and we are right on time. So thank you very much. Thank you for all the wonderful presentations and all the best in your work. All right, and we will wrap up the session for today. And please proceed to not for the day, but please proceed to the keynote session following. Thank you.